Okay, so I'm inside Azure portal and we will take a look at how to create Azure database for PostgreSQL database, right? So first thing, go to all services, then click the databases and then choose Azure database for PostgreSQL server, right? As you can see, I already have one instance and I want to show you how to create one for yourself. So click on create. Here you have two options to choose from, one being Azure database for PostgreSQL and Azure Cosmos DB for PostgreSQL, right? The Cosmos DB part we are going to skip because we want pure PostgreSQL, right? Now within that we have like three options, so flexible server, single server and Azure Arc. So I picked the flexible server, right? Because single server is only good when you have existing data to port over, and when you want to start from scratch, flexible server is better. So click on create, which would create a new instance with option for configuration on the left and estimated cost on the right. If you look at the default pricing, you will notice that it goes very high. So I will show you what could be the reason. Now pick the subscription, then resource group, then your server name, right? So this is just for test. Meanwhile, you can pick the region which cuts down the cost, right? Sometimes US based regions are cheaper while Asian and European could be costlier, and sometimes differently, right? So apart from that, we will also choose PostgreSQL version, right? And we can also check the workload type. So production for small medium would cost large cost, then production for large size will be even more higher, and then comes development, which will reduce the price. Then you can also reduce price by selecting the core and storage. So I picked up the simplest one, and that reduces the cost to 1000 INR per month, right? Then I can pick the authentication. Here you can see PostgreSQL authentication. I can add my username, password here, and that should be good to go for my instance, right? Basically, what you choose in case of your workload would reduce the price. Also make sure to pick the configuration for CPU and RAM along with storage, that would decide the rest, right? Another thing is make sure to also pick the right region, right? And after that, make sure to pick the option for authentications. So I'm just going with PostgreSQL authentication, right? Once you select everything, you can go back to your instance that is created. So in my case, I already created one, and you can view that here. It takes a bit time for deploying this, so pay attention to all the details that come up during the deployment. Now, unlike any other database, Postgres is a bit, you can say, complicated in the sense that you will have to pay attention to networking part, right? Make sure to set the firewall rule where you add your own IP and allow all the IPs within the IP address range. Otherwise, what happens is that you try to use things like, let's say, DBeaver or maybe Azure Data Studio, and you will notice that you have this option of IP address conflict or not being recognized part. So make sure to allow all the IP address ranges, then you can download the SSL certificate as well, and they connect that to the applications that you have for PostgreSQL, right? So that is one more thing for you to try out, right? So we have everything. We also managed to download the CS certificate. Then also whitelisted our IP address. So now we have to check the server name and then check username, right? And now that we have our instance, next job is to use DBeaver, right? So we use DBeaver to connect, right? So before we go there, what we can do is we check our path for CS certificate. So I downloaded the CS certificate from networking section, and here you can find that download SSL certificate, which is the certificate we use for pointing out, right? So here DigiCert CS certificate, you can see, right click on it and copy as a path, right? And now we can see whether we have DBeaver open, and it is. So now next step would be to go to connections and then use PostgreSQL. Now here I need to check the SSL part. Click on use SSL and then check for your CS certificate, right? And here it's .pem file, right? So hopefully this is the area where it is pointed out. If not, then we will have to use this area. Most likely this is the area. Now let's go back to main. Here I will have to post the host. So this is the server name to copy, then comes username, right? Then comes the password. Right now the paste the password here and then move to test connection. Okay, as you can see it works, right? So what we have done here is we went to SSL, in CS certificate we added the certificate that we downloaded from networking section of our PostgreSQL's settings, right? It was the button right here, right? Then we added that to one of the drives and pointed it out over there. Now coming back to main, I added the host name whole, then port 5432, then database default to Postgres, right? And also added username and password, tested the connection, can finish, so that it will add the database there, right? Now what we can do here at this point is we can create the database, right? So that we have something to look over there, right? So we add database. Here I can right click, create database, right? So basically we just right click, create new database. Here let's name this sample. You can be the owner, right? And you can use template database if you have one. Click OK, right? Encountered a problem, permission denied for table space pg default. So that does happen sometimes. Table space default you can go with sample, then owner is me, and let's see if that works. Okay, so it does work. We can now refresh and we have our sample database. Now here I can create a new table. Let's see if it allows me to do so. Now as you can see, let's name this table sample, right? Here I can add the column, right? And let's see, I can add data type, identity, and so on, right? Once we create the table, let's try and save this. So create table public sample and process with that. So that does work. We can refresh and check it. So now let's try and open this in SQL editor, right? So we can create new column. Let's name this ID. Data type I can switch to, let's say, integer. So now we click on OK and we have one column ID integer data type. Now let's create another column. Let's give it name as name and varchar. Click OK, and that should do. Once this is created, we have something to explore through, right? So here we use select all from say sample, right? And if I run this, we have some structure to view at. So id name we have managed to get. I can go on, do the data addition, I can extend this table, I can create multiple tables, etc., right? So apart from that, you can see that we just managed to connect to PostgreSQL database on Azure with the help of DBeaver. So that was the goal.